All right, so last time we wrote so much code on screen, but I didn't really want to take the time to explain them all in detail. But I do want to take that time, a little bit of time right now. So let's understand what we've done. All right, so we'll start with the first line. Now, to the right of the equal sign, we write require Mongoose. So it doesn't matter if you don't know about Node. This is a way that we share code between different files in the Node environment. Mongoose is installed as a bundle into our project. And by default, execution of files in our Node project is done in its own scope or in isolation. But don't forget that just because we've installed it as a package, we can't start it like writing Mongoose everywhere and expect it to start. So before being able to use the package we install, it's important to require it into this particular file. So by doing it this way, we'll assign it to the variable Mongoose that you see here on the screen. Now it's time for the left-hand side. So over here on the left, we use the const keyword, and it's a little bit of ES6 code, and we'll follow the ES6 code as much as we can in this particular course. So const is similar, or, well, maybe we can almost say identical to var. So in other words, it's used to declare variables. Specifically, though, const means that we don't change anything about the variable, and it's absolutely true since it is a library. Okay, so now that we understand the line number 1, it's time to understand line number 3. So line number 3 is this line where things are getting intriguing with Mongoose, so it ties back into the diagram, which we saw when Mocha first started up. So the main purpose here is to tell Mongoose to connect to Mongo. And I mean the actual Mongo database running currently on our local machine. So in order to start this connection, we use the connect function in Mongoose. We write mongoose.connect. And the thing here, the argument, is a real important thing. So Mongoose doesn't assume that you're trying to connect to a database running in a local machine. Rather than doing this, it demands that you tell it explicitly and directly what copy or what server of Mongo that you want to connect to. So here, this localhost variable on the right side of the screen means that search for Mongo database is present on this machine. So Mongoose takes care of it on its own after this. After this slash, there's an important piece of the puzzle as well. As you might remember, I did say earlier that you've got your Mongo instance, and in that instance, you have more than one database, right? So if there are several databases inside the MongoDB instance, Mongoose will make sure that it connects to a database that's called students. Then we connect to Mongo and say that connect to students and any collections of data that we store in them inside of that database. So you should also note here that there's no need to create a database earlier in order to be able to access it. So as soon as we try to connect to the database and save a record to it, Mongo and Mongoose will work together and create a database automatically. All right, cool. So what about line 4? We're going to go back to the diagram. And this shows this series of events at the beginning of our testing stuff. Now, I said that we told Mongoose to connect to Mongo, and we'll wait for it, but we don't know how much time it's going to take, because it may be a Mongo database sitting on the other side of the world, right? So to get a message so that we can be informed of the connections, whether it's been successful or failed, In order to do that, we'll use once and on event handlers. And that's what you're seeing here. So once means watch for Mongoose to emit an event called open one time. And if it does, run this function right here. And then see under this line, it says, watch Mongoose to emit an event called error. And if it does, run this function right here. So we use both, right? We use these two event handlers to figure out if Mongoose is done with whatever it's doing or if it's still trying to do it. So obviously, I'm trying to make this as clear as can be. Open and error are both very particular events that we are passing to Mongoose, right? So I'm creating them on my own or not making them up. You follow? So we can say that they're both parts of the Mongoose library. Now, of course, you can run back and check the documentation whenever you want. In fact, we can even just check it together real quick. So here's the documentation, and that's it. So open and error. All right, so let's come back here. So this fat arrow syntax right here is also part of ES6. In practice, they're almost identical to normal functions with a function keyword. But lastly, I want to run this file to see what's going to happen. So I'm going to use the VS Code terminal. And while I'm working on my project, hopefully you will too, but you can use your own command prompt if you want. But just be sure that you're in the students folder in the command prompt. So here on the command line, I will execute this file by running node test/test_helper.js. All right, run it. All right, so see how it says we are connected. So it means our Mongoose library is successful in connecting to our MongoDB instance. So if you have this warning, it is not necessarily important because it's not really an error, but in order to avoid this, you can copy the statement and paste it here, and then run the test again. All right, so that's it. Now, if you didn't see this, make sure that your MongoDB database is running. All right, so I think that's enough for now. We'll move along to the next section.